Hello to all and welcome back to War Thunder Ground Forces for 3 things that need to change. Now, I'm sure there are many things about ground forces that should be changed, and I'm not saying these are the only 3 things. There are many things, of course, but these are 3 things that really stand out to me when I'm playing the game, and I'm actually going to say from, I don't know, least important to most important as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah. It's not going to be more about opinion as it is about just genuine fact and things I genuinely, well, I know and other people always tell me need and should change. So the first thing I was going to talk about today is the meta of ground forces when it comes to British tanks. Now, you probably are already aware of this because I'm by no means the first person to mention this, but the British tanks have a problem. And the problem is, quite simply, down to history. Now you see, in real life, British tanks never used high explosive armor piercing rounds. We used high explosive, and we used armor piercing, but we never used high explosive armor piercing for pretty much the entire Second World War. And the reason was a good one, to be perfectly honest with you, is because we didn't need it. You see, in real life when it comes to tanks, the thing is with a tank is its crew have morale. They have a will to live and survive, and because of that, when they're in a stressful battle situation in a confined, cramped area like a tank, if something like, say, a shell enters their tank and gets embedded in their friend, or hits a critical component, or even so much as just makes a tiny little hole and actually does no real damage to the tank, that will frighten them. And 9 times out of 10, as soon as a shell penetrated a tank and the crew realised this, they would leave the tank. They would just bail out of it, 9 times out of 10 in real life. So, the need for high explosive armor piercing was never really necessary, because as already mentioned, as soon as that shell enters it, they don't want to be in that tank anymore, and the majority of the times they would just bail. Now, it is true that other nations did use high explosive. America was, a bit 50-50 with theirs. They liked a bit of solid and a bit of high explosive armor piercing. Russia favoured high explosive more, but did also have their fair share of armor piercing. And Germany was basically all out high explosive armor piercing, with the only shells that weren't high explosive armor piercing being composite shells, which of course are designed to be as fast as possible and have the highest penetration possible, so any amount of explosive would just slow them down and, well, make it not what it's supposed to be. So for that reason alone, they use them because they, I guess they saw them as more valuable. They like to kill crew better, they like to do that, and, fair enough. But it was never needed, and that is a problem in War Thunder. Why is this the case? Well, it's because in War Thunder, crew have unlimited morale. You can fire as many shells as you want into a tank, and as long as 2 crew members of that tank are still alive, that tank will keep operating completely normally. Well, the crew will. I mean, obviously if you break components, then of course they won't work, but the crew can just repair at the same speeds. They'll often reload at the same speeds unless you've killed the loader. They'll aim out the same speed, they'll shoot the same speed, they'll drive at the same speed, they won't make any mistakes because it's all AI, and that's the problem. So a high explosive shell when entering a tank will, a lot of the time, do a lot of damage, because as soon as it enters a tank, it destroys loads of components, it hurts the crew, does loads of damage. But when a non-explosive shell enters a tank, unless it directly hits a crew member, or it creates some kind of spalling from the shell penetrating the armor, which is often pretty rare in this game to do much damage, then it's not going to do much. And that is a big problem in the game, because it means that shells like the British, well, British shells are nowhere near as powerful as other nations and factions. And when it comes to the meta of War Thunder, this isn't fair, is it? That one side can't use them and the other can. But it's not Gaijin's fault per se. You see, the thing is, you know, of course they could add high explosive shells to the British, but that would be terrible and unrealistic, and I wouldn't like that, and I don't think anyone would. But there are other ways of countering it. One way, out of the many, would be slightly increase the reload time of British guns. This would mean that, although their shells may not do as much damage, they can reload slightly faster than their opposition, which gives them a fighting chance in a fight. A second, idea could be to put down the battle ratings of every British tank by a small amount, mind you, not massively. Maybe put them all down by, say, a 0.3 of a battle rating, and, you know, see how they perform then. Because, yes, they will still not have as good shells as what they're coming up against, but on the same, in the same idea, in the same concept, they will have slightly better armour than what they're coming up against, and have maybe slightly better guns, and things like this that I personally believe would even out the battlefield. So that is one thing I think that needs to be added to the game if they want the British to stop being pretty much the most underpowered ground forces nation in the game. Now, my second point is nothing unique or different once again. Everyone's talked about this already, but I felt it's worth talking about and saying my thoughts on it and how we could solve it, and that is spawn killing. Now, when a team is losing, or winning actually, it often doesn't matter, the enemy team will often rush into their spawn, and then as soon as they spawn, they'll just shoot them and immediately kill them, which, going without saying, is really unfair and shouldn't be in the game. Now, Gaijin have already implemented features to try and resolve this problem, such as when you spawn in, I believe you have, I think it's 10 to 15 seconds of invincibility frames? Something like that. But yeah, so you're invulnerable for 10 to 15 seconds, but that doesn't do much. Because the problem with that is, okay, you're invincible for 10 to 15 seconds, that's great, but if you're in a crappy little AA truck, and you've just got a massive heavy tank facing you, you know, you can't penetrate him, but he can just wait that 10-15 seconds and then one-hit kill you. So, yes, that slightly helped the problem, but it's by no means solved it. And what annoys me the most with this is how it's so easy to be resolved, and how so many games in the past have resolved this problem. And one of the most obvious and easiest things Gaijin could implement was as a feature where you can't get too close to the enemy spawn, because that's like, you know, out of the battlefield, and it says, you know, return to the battlefield. And if you stay outside the battlefield too long, you'll either be forced to teleport back into the normal area, or you'll die, or have a reduction, or a loss, or something. I mean, the game I can remember that had this quite strongly was a game that you'll probably all know, Battlefield 3. Now, in Battlefield 3, if you got too close to the enemy spawn, you'd have a certain amount of time to get back into the battlefield, or you die, and it would count, I think it counts as a suicide, I believe. So, that's a great feature, and it works fine in Battlefield, because it meant that if you spawn in, then you were nowhere near all the other enemies who were trying to shoot you. I mean, yes, in Battlefield, sometimes snipers would snipe you from all the way across the map, and that may happen in War Thunder, but this would massively solve the problems of people just camping out bases, and it's already been done in Air Forces, because if you get too close to enemy strips now, then the flak there is now ridiculously powerful, and you won't have even so much as a few seconds to fly over their airstrip without you getting immediately shot down by a million hyper-accurate AA guns. So they've already done it there, basically, so why not in ground forces? So yeah, that's another point that I genuinely think would severely improve the game, just by doing something really easy and simple like that. And the third and final thing I'm going to bring up is something I have never heard anyone else bring up. Not saying they haven't, of course, but it's something I've been thinking about, and something I think would make ground forces a lot better. And, you know, I've spoken with this with a few of my friends, and they've all agreed this would make the game, or ground forces, a lot better, a lot more diverse, and would actually mean that more people would enjoy playing it. So what I'm on about right now is adding aircraft at the start of the game, you see. And the thought is this: if you make it so you can spawn with an aircraft at the start of a game and the whole way through the game, you don't even need tanks, and, you know, you can do all this, it will mean one of many things. Number one, players who like, you know, the close range and sort of close air support kind of specific ground attack roles that aircraft do in ground forces in this game, then they can enjoy that the whole way through the match. They don't have to wait until they've got a good amount of points until they can finally call in an aircraft. And another thing it helps with is it means that there won't be an AA spam at the end of the game, and will mean that AA guns will actually have a value at the start of a match. Because of course at the start of a match, who starts with AA guns? Normally no one, with the, of course, one exception of a couple of really overpowered AA guns that are basically tank destroyers. I'm sure you can think of one. But other than them, no one starts with regular AA guns, because what's the point? There are no aircraft to shoot down, other than that one Japanese G4M1 that circles for some reason. I still don't really understand why that's in the game. But yeah, that's it, and that's about, what, 1,000 million kilometers away, and you can't even hit it with AA anyway. So what's the point? And, you know, I genuinely think this would greatly improve the game. I mean, I have actually heard, and I don't know if this is true, but apparently, if you start a quite, you know, high battle rating game with a really, really low level aircraft, you will be allowed to spawn with it? I don't know if that's true or not, and I'm kind of doubting it is, but I've been told that's true, and I'm far too lazy to check it out. But regardless, it doesn't matter, because you shouldn't have to resort to low-level aircraft, even if that is true. You should just be able to use regular aircraft for the battle rating, which means that not only will there be awesome battles in the air, and, you know, bombers will be flying over and hitting targets, because of course, why stop with just aircraft? Also add bases into the game, like, properly, because there were bases within ground forces, and then you couldn't damage them with bombs or something. It was a bit weird. Although I think they took that out, so I have no idea what that was about. But yeah, add bases, add bombing things to bomb, add things for fighters to shoot down as well as other aircraft, maybe have AI aircraft that fly in and bomb. All these things that can make the game so much more diverse, and means that aircraft will enjoy playing it, tanks will enjoy playing it, AA will enjoy playing it, everyone will enjoy it more, and it would become infinitely better. So why that's not in the game right now, I don't know, and I genuinely think it would make it so much better. And one last thing I was going to mention, which is something that I know someone, at least someone is going to bring me up on, is they're going to say, oh, but hang on, isn't one of the main reasons why aircraft aren't allowed at the start of the game because they can be a bit overpowered at the start of a game, you know, when all your tanks are close together and they're all going for the same objective and that, then aircraft can fly in and shoot them all down and all that. Surely that would be unfair. And I think it maybe would offer the aircraft an advantage, but once again, you'd have fighters that would also spawn that would take out all the ground attack aircraft and bombers, or at least fight them, which would make it harder for them, and people would actually choose AA at the start of the game with the intention of shooting down aircraft, which, once again, I think will just make the game so much better, and I really, really hope Gaijin will add it. I mean, they never will, because, well, let's be honest here, I mean, they've still got the Sterling at a 5.0 battle rating, and the Lancaster at a 5.7, so let's be perfectly honest here, they're not the smartest when it comes to making games fair and fun, but at the very least I did just want to say this and get it out there, because I genuinely think these are some really good ideas, and I think they would really improve the game. So, that's all from me. If you like what you saw, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, it's always appreciated, and until next time, I say I thank you very much, and with any luck, Gaijin will somehow see this video. Yeah, they're really not, are they? And even if they were, they wouldn't care, because none of this involves money. So anyway, ta-ra.